Hey cats, it's Ed Shoehorn Bud here. Thanks for joining me on the channel for a special video today. This is my part 1 of the ASICS GEL NIMBUS 24 versus the rest. Hey cats, welcome to my strange alcove of the internet. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when I roll out the new videos for you. It also helps us out a treat as well if you give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. Danke schön. Now, when you get some comparison videos, people sort of hold the shoe up and say, yeah,
it kind of feels the same and all that.
They got around about the same price.
Well, what I've done is I've delved deep into the stats today. I've got my measuring tapes out, calipers, I've weighed the shoes, I've even smelt them. And I've also worn them outside to run in over a considerable number of miles, so you know you get my honest and detailed views today. This fine shoe was sent over to me by ASICS for testing purposes, though they are not furnishing me with earth credits to make this video or say anything really. Certainly turned into a very usable, smooth operator, this one. A real nice daily cruiser. And there's some lovely integration of that Flight Foam Blast Plus. The man from the shoe sanctuary, he say yes. So, first comparison up today is against the Vomero 16. Now, this shoe is very similar to the Nimbus 24 in a whole bunch of different ways. There's only about 6 grams difference between my Vomero 16 and the Nimbus 24, but you must bear in mind there is a half size difference between the shoes, so I think if you had them in the same size, probably be pretty much spot on. A bit of a tug of war between these two models, though I would suggest that the Vomero 16 is a little less wallet damaging. Both of these shoes are constructed in a similar way. Here you've got a combination of this SRO2 foam, which I think is probably Cushlon, and some ZOOMX in the core of the shoe, whereas we got Flight Foam and Flight Foam Blast Plus here in the Nimbus 24, plus some gel thrown in for good measure. It's a bit like a trifle, I suppose. In fact, I really fancy some trifle now. I shall have to send Mrs. EDDBUD out to get some, or I could go and get it. I can't really pull these apart too much in terms of how forgiving they are underfoot. Makes them very attractive from that point of view for daily use, I think. I think either of these could really grace any running shoe rotation, really. Perhaps not the best for higher tempo sessions, but there's loads of other shoes out there for that. I think for daily purpose sort of running, both of these shoes can really do the job. I'm not sure about the stack height measurements that ASICS have got about these. I really don't believe them at all. I've got about 38mm of stack height here in my size 10.5. I think at the front is round about 28mm, so we've got about a 10mm drop, and far less in the Vomero 16 here, about 33mm in the heel and 24 in the forefoot, so it makes for about a 9mm drop. Either way, both of these shoes can do a great job for you for that sort of daily use scenario. I would suggest that the outsole of the Vomero 16 does give it a slight edge if you're running on a variety of different surfaces, but I think in terms of on-foot comfort, the ASICS has the edge. Slightly better lockdown in this one, easier to achieve, probably about as close a call as you can get, but both of these are recommended by the Bud man. Something a little different in the next comparison, the Adios 6 from Adidas. Another shoe with a combination of foams in the midsole, which seems to be the trend right now in 2022. The Adios 6 has that firmer light strike material in the heel, and then from the midfoot to forefoot you have that Light Strike Pro. As per all the recent Adidas shoes, this one seems to flex a little bit more and break in the more you use it, whereas the Nimbus 24 just felt really great straight out the box. It didn't have that same break-in sort of duration. Certainly a more bouncy and squashy shoe here in the ASICS GEL NIMBUS 24, and the Adios 6 has a much narrower fit in the upper, probably aimed a little bit more at those faster paces. A very similar heel to toe drop here in the Adios 6 as per the Vomero 16, in fact almost identical down to the millimetre, though there's a really big weight advantage here in the Adios 6 compared to the GEL NIMBUS 24. And bear in mind these are in an 11.5 UK, whereas the GEL NIMBUS 24 is in a UK 10.5. It's coming up for 40 grams difference between these two, so you can imagine if this shoe was in a comparable size, then the difference would be even greater. I think if you like a firmer, more responsive shoe underfoot, then the Adios 6 is the one to go for. The ASICS GEL NIMBUS 24, much more plush in the heel and the upper. Overall, softer materials all round. It's quite a big price difference there. There's about a 50 earth credit difference, so That's pretty considerable when you think about it. And you can often find the Adios 6 discounted even further, below 100 Earth credits. I think it's very much down to use case here if we're going to compare these two shoes. The Adios 6 for higher pace work, which might move it just out of being a daily shoe for some people, whereas this one certainly fits more into that daily use category. Next up, it's the Invincible Run from Nike. I make it about 42mm of stack height here in my UK size 11 in the heel. There's about 32mm in the forefoot, so it makes for about a 10mm drop. Certainly this shoe to me is a max cushion shoe. I'd always put it into that category. But when I measured the Gel Nimbus 24, it wasn't all that far off. There's about 37mm of stack height here in the heel. Measure it about 28, 29, something like that in the forefoot. So we've got a 9mm drop. Not sure where ASICS are getting those stack heights measurements from. It just doesn't seem to add up to me. There's certainly a more stable foot strike here in the Gel Nimbus 24 in comparison to the Invincible Run. A more quicksand-like feeling from that ZOOMX material in the midsole here. And the uppers are actually not all that different. It's relatively plush here in the Invincible Run. I didn't quite like it as much as this one though. I mean, aside from the tongue, it's very, very padded here, where this is almost like a knit material. You could use the ASICS as an easy day shoe, I suppose. I think it's down to the feel that you desire underfoot, really. Do you want that stability there, or do you want the squash? I think if you want a firmer, yet still forgiving experience, then the Gel Nimbus 24 is probably the one to go for. I mean, price-wise, they're pretty much identical. There's nothing in it. There's a full ounce difference, though, between these two shoes in favour of the ASICS model. Last comparison up today is against the Speed 2 from SAUCONY. I love the Endorphin Speed line. Very, very light, very nimble, and a hell of a lot more cushioned than I actually thought it was. I'm getting about 40mm of stack height here in the heel of my UK size 11. I'm reckoning on about 32mm of stack height in the forefoot, so that's pretty much spot on correct from what Saucony tell us. 8mm drop. The lightest shoe today on the comparisons though, 257 grams in my UK 11. That's about 9.1 ounces. So, I mean, you got almost 70 grams difference between this and the Gel Nimbus 24. All round a much more narrow shoe in terms of the surface area underfoot. Round about the same price though, so that's why I've included it in today's comparisons. I mean, this shoe is set apart from some of the others today. It does have that nylon plate to give it a little bit of rigidity. Strangely though, this is slightly firmer underfoot and less squashy than the Gel Nimbus 24. I think the outsole on the Nimbus 24 is certainly a big upgrade over the Speed 2. It'll just work a hell of a lot better on a variety of different surfaces and weather conditions. I think use case really for the Speed 2 is somebody after a much more nimble shoe, something you could probably use for some racing or at least some tempo efforts. That for me is where the Gel Nimbus 24 falls down really. I wouldn't really want to use it on something like that. Certainly a more plush upper, but I do think that you'll get bags of durability and longevity out of this one. Some similarly priced footwear here, but actually when you weigh it up, there's some considerable differences. Much more bare bones this one. I think they've just got rid of everything that's not really required and left you with a very fast shoe. You can see why people like this, especially for the price. That's all my comparisons for today. I hope you've enjoyed the stats. Tried to keep things varied here and some shoes that people really like right now, some very popular models. I'll have some more comparisons against the Gel Nimbus 24 very soon. Time for a musical interlude. Now, if you like your rock of the garage variety, you're going to enjoy this one. Wild Billy Childish and the Buff Medways with Medway Wheelers. I believe this one was released back in 2005. I do have a vinyl copy of it, and it sounds really nice. The album kicks off with the chaotic The Man I Am, which is one of those songs that if you listen to it after a hard day's work, all the aggression and frustration just creeps away. There's some wild harmonica on there, nasty, trashy guitars, and thumping, thudding drums. The chaos continues on the track, the Medway Wheelers. I'm not entirely sure what Wild Billy Childish is on about half the time, but it's very exciting nonetheless. I think it's a bit of a protest song, but I really do like the song Poundland Poets. And I think we all know what that one's about. Those lummox sat outside of Poundland causing trouble. Seems to be more and more items actually in Poundland that aren't a pound. And they're several pounds. I don't quite understand. If you like your rock nicely polished, then you won't like this one, but if you like some chaos, go and check out Wild Billy Childish and the Buff Medways with this one, the Medway Wheelers. Thanks for tuning in, cats, always appreciated. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when I launch the new videos for you. And you can also give this video a thumbs up like and share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you